My name is Sarah Eggers, and I'm in the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research here at FDA. I'm in our Office of Strategic Programs, and I'll be the facilitator for today's meeting. I'm going to have my colleagues introduce themselves in a minute. But what I want to do is just thank you all for being here and welcome. And this is the meeting, this is the Fibromyalgia public meeting. It was originally scheduled to be for December 10th. Now you might look outside and say, well, gee, it looks like it could be December 10th today, but no, this is March 26th, and we are very appreciative that you stuck with us through the December snow and then stuck with us again through the March snow to be here today for this important meeting. This meeting is also being webcast, and we have many people signed up to join the meeting by webcast. We thank you. Your voice is very important to this effort, and there'll be several ways that you can contribute as well. I just want to let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded through the webcast, and there will also be a transcript of the meeting that we will post on our website some days after the meeting. There are restrooms located out about as far away as you can be, out down the end of this hall and then to the right, and there's a drinking fountain there as well. There's a kiosk that you might have noticed at the near the registration table that sells basic food. Feel free to get up at any time. If you need to stretch, if you need to walk around, if you need to use the restroom, this is a very informal meeting, so please feel free to do so. With that, I'm going to go through kind of the next slide and give just a high-level overview of what we're going to be doing today. Next slide, please. My colleagues will be giving a few presentations just to set the context for what we're trying to achieve today and some background on fibromyalgia. I will then come back and give an overview of the discussion format. This is a very different format than typical public meetings conducted by FDA. And then we're going to delve right into the most important part of the day, which are the discussion topics 1 and 2. And 1 is focusing on the disease symptoms and daily impacts that matter most to patients. And 2 is the patients' perspectives on current approaches to treating fibromyalgia. There will be an open public comment period after that, which we will enable anyone from the public, including the patients, but also others, to give a comment on typically some issue that's not directly related to one of the 2 topics that we discussed today. And then we'll have some closing remarks. So with that, there's a break between discussion topic 1 and 2, I forgot to mention, and you'll be able to use the kiosk and walk around. And with that, I'm going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves. This is the all FDA staff.
Good afternoon. I'm Patrick Fry, Director of the Office of Program and Strategic Analysis in CEDAR.
Hi, I'm Bob Rappaport. I'm the Director of the Division of Anesthesia, Analgesia, and Addiction Products in the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research at FDA.
Hi, I'm Sharon Hertz. I'm a Deputy Director in Bob's division.
I'm Ellen Fields. I'm a clinical team leader in the same division.
I'm Elizabeth Kilgore, Medical Officer, Clinical Reviewer in the same division.
All right, thank you. And with that, I'm going to ask Bob to step up and give some welcoming opening remarks to kick us off with this discussion. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. So, welcome everybody. I too am glad to see the excellent turnout and the large number of people who've registered to watch us on the web. That's great, and I'm sorry Mother Nature didn't see to bringing us beautiful Washington spring for you, where unfortunately she's just not cooperating lately. I'm the director of the division that would be approving and has approved drugs for fibromyalgia. Over the last 8 years, we've had the responsibility for that class of drugs. So we're very, very interested and very excited to be part of this and to have this opportunity to hear from you what what kind of issues you're concerned about in relation to pharmaceutical products for the treatment of fibromyalgia. Obviously, fibromyalgia is a disorder that should be treated with multiple modalities, and drugs are just one of them. But that's our area. We're the drug people, so that's the area that we hope to hear a lot from you about how we can help you by finding better drugs. It's great that there are a lot of patients here, that there are patient advocates, that there are caregivers, families, and I'm also really pleased that we have people, our colleagues from industry here, who are interested in developing these products. And as you can see from the panel and the fact that I can assure you there are others, my division, the group of people in my division who deal with drugs for pain and fibromyalgia are very interested in hearing from you. And so we have a large representation here on the panel and in the room and watching from their desks for those who just don't have the time to come and sit here today. So I want to just make sure that you all understand that we do, as FDA, we play a critical role in drug development. We work very closely with investigators and the industry folks during development. We can give a lot of input and help in terms of how drugs are studied, what the studies should look like, how we're going to interpret them, what our concerns would be in terms of the safety and efficacy of the drugs, but we don't do the studies. Those are done by investigators from academia or private industries and by the drug companies themselves. But we do, as I say, work very close with them, and I think they would acknowledge that we're pretty savvy about how to study drugs for pain. We know a lot about this area. We've been really working hard over the last couple of decades to figure out the right way to study them. But fibromyalgia is a little different, right? It's not just pain. And as we've been working through this, and since before the first drug we approved for fibromyalgia, which was Lyrica in 2007, we've been trying to understand what features and parts of fibromyalgia the patients, you folks, really want to have treated, and which ones are most important to you, which ones, how they all fit together, whether, for instance, if we're treating the pain and your sleep gets better, that's great, obviously. But if we're treating the pain and your sleep is not getting better, or you're still having a lot of headaches, or you're just still fatigued, you don't hurt anymore, but you're so fatigued you can't function, that's not good either. So, we need to know from you which of those things are being treated with the drugs that we've approved so far, and which are not, and which, what is your sort of interest in seeing those various features of the disease treated with drugs. Now, some of them may not be amenable to treatment with drugs, and there are, as I said earlier, there are other modalities that hopefully you're all looking into, but where we can be helpful, please let us know. And that's really what we're here to do today, is to listen to you. We're not here to tell you much about what we do or how we work. We're here to listen to you so that we can bring that back to our desks and sort through how to better develop drugs for your disorder. The current drugs that are available, we've approved 3 since 2007 for fibromyalgia, and that's great, but we recognize that those have limited utility, don't work for all patients, and so we want to hear about that as well. Which of those drugs are working for you, which are not, in what ways are they working, or are they not working? Some drugs work fairly well generally for people with a particular disorder, and others only work for small subpopulations, and so those are the kinds of things we would also hope to hear from you today. And then, ultimately, the key thing that we look at in a study of a new drug is whether it is safe, obviously, for that would be something that we'd be looking at any drug. But the key thing that we're looking at for a new drug is how effective it is and what that balance of safety and efficacy are. So, you know, a topical ointment that you put on your skin to treat arthritis, and that it doesn't get into your blood system and really doesn't have side effects except maybe a little rash, is you know, if it's not terribly effective, we're still probably going to approve it because it's a little bit effective and it's relatively benign. But there are drugs out there that, you know, really may do a gangbuster treatment for a disorder like fibromyalgia, but they're really, really toxic. They have all kinds of side effects. So the other thing we want to hear from you is, what is your thinking about the risk-benefit profile? How much risk are you willing to tolerate? No drug is completely safe. You all recognize that, hopefully. But there's a scale there, and we need to hear from you how much risk you're willing to tolerate. So those are some of the things we hope to hear from you. I'm sure there'll be other things that you bring to the table. And again, thank you so much for coming today and participating. And I'm going to turn this over to Patrick, who's going to give you an overall picture of our patient-focused drug development efforts. So thanks.
All right, thanks, Bob. Bob touched on a number of topics that are really, really critical for our decision-making in CEDAR. And this is really why we have patient-focused drug development. When you talk about the severity of the condition and an analysis of the current treatment options, that information is very important in setting the context in which we make our decisions, because our decisions aren't made in vacuums. And this was a topic during our discussions with the regulated industry and public stakeholders during PDUFA 5. We would often hear about the patient perspective in the context of a specific drug at an advisory committee meeting, but we didn't have a meeting mechanism that could allow us to systematically get at the patient perspective, which we should get as good of an understanding as we can about the patient's perspective on the disease and current treatment options. So that's really where patient-focused drug development came from. It was a proposal put on the table and discussed during the PDUFA 5 discussions, and that wound up in the final package, and that's why we're here today. To develop that, actually go back one, to develop that systematic way of gathering the patient perspective on the condition. It helps us inform that understanding, the context of our decision, and informs our oversight both during drug development and during the review of a marketing application. So not just one or the other, but the full drug development timeline. All right, next slide now. All right. In September 2012, we announced a preliminary set of diseases. This is how we began the process. We took public input on these proposed nominations. I think it was 39 in total, to see what the public, where the importance was from the public's perspective on which diseases to treat. We held a public meeting in October 2012 to also hear face-to-face from patients. We filled up one of these rooms in the Great Room. It was quite a busy meeting. We took over 4,500 comments that were submitted in the public docket and analyzed them. In sum total, they addressed over 90 different disease areas. And from this, we had to ultimately, throughout PDUFA 5, choose 20. So we carefully considered these public comments and the perspective of the review divisions in the Office of New Drugs and CEDAR, as well as the corresponding offices in the Center for Biologics, to develop that list of 16 disease areas that we were going to address in fiscal years 2013 through 15. We published this list in April 2013, the same month that we had our very first patient-focused drug development meeting. And next fiscal year, we'll establish and start off another public process to nominate the disease areas for the remaining 2 years of PDUFA 5. Next slide. So here you see the 4 meetings that we had in fiscal 13. Chronic fatigue was our first, followed by HIV, lung cancer, and narcolepsy. We had sickle cell disease was our first meeting in fiscal 14 last month. And we have the pulmonary arterial hypertension meeting scheduled for May, I believe. We'll be following up with additional meetings towards the end of 2014 and into 2015 with some of the disease areas that you see on the right-hand side. Next slide. So how do we run these meetings? We really begin with a set of questions that are targeted to eliciting the patient perspectives on the disease and the treatment options. The set of questions that we begin with can apply to any disease area, and they're taken from FDA's benefit-risk framework, which is where patient-focused drug development came from. They represent important considerations in our decision-making. Then we meet with the review division to understand and tailor those questions to be targeted towards the particular disease area that's being addressed in each meeting. So our general questions, we published them when we started that initial process back in the fall of 2012. But then with each patient-focused meeting devoted to a disease area, you'll see a variation of those questions published, as you did for fibromyalgia. We focus on relevant current topics in the drug development for the disease, for the particular disease of that meeting. For example, for the HIV meeting last June, we had some questions that focused on cure research. We've learned that active patient involvement and participation is what makes these meetings a success for us and for you. Next slide. So what do we do with this information then? Well, so far we published, I believe, 2 of our Voice of the Patient reports, which represents a lot of work in summarizing both what we heard at the meeting, unique perspectives that we heard from people on the webcast, as well as additional comments that are submitted to the public docket after the meeting. The reports serve an important function in communicating both to our review staff as well as the regulated industry what is important from the patient perspective as far as improvements that they'd like to see in their daily life. We believe that in the long run, the impact of this program will be better, more informed understanding of how we might find ways to develop new treatments for these diseases, both for the FDA review staff and for the regulated industry in that effort. And I think that's all I have. All right. Who we go to next? Okay. We have Liz Kilgore from the division.
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Kilgore, a clinical reviewer in the Division of Anesthesia, Analgesia, and Addiction Products. I will be presenting this afternoon's slides on the background of fibromyalgia and therapeutic options. Fibromyalgia, also known as fibromyalgia syndrome, is a chronic disorder that affects the body's muscles and soft tissue. Although chronic widespread pain is the defining feature, other symptoms include sleeping difficulties, fatigue, irritable bowel syndrome, headaches, mood disorders, and cognitive issues. Fibromyalgia affects approximately 5 million adults in the United States, and women are disproportionately affected, making up about 80 to 90% of those diagnosed. Next slide. The precise cause of fibromyalgia is unknown, and a variety of etiologies have been theorized, such as possible factors that include viruses that affect the central nervous system's ability to perceive pain, injuries and physical stress, or emotional distress. Other postulated theories include sleep disorders and immunological disorders. Fibromyalgia may be more common in those with spinal arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus. According to the American College of Rheumatology 1990, the 2 major diagnostic criteria are pain in at least 11 of 18 different specific points of the body, referred to as trigger points, and pain that has lasted for 3 or more months, referred to as chronic pain. Next slide. There are multiple symptoms involved in fibromyalgia. As previously noted, the primary symptom of fibromyalgia is pain. Painful areas known as tender points develop in various parts of the body and may spread. The pain characteristics may differ among patients. For example, the pain may be described as feeling hot and sharp, or may be described as feeling like a deep ache. The intensity of the pain can vary with the time of day, cold weather, activity level, and stress. Some patients may have abnormal pain perception processing, which leads to strong reactions to things that others would not find painful. In addition, pain may contribute to sleep problems for many with fibromyalgia. This is characterized by difficulty both falling and staying asleep. Poor sleep may lead to stiffness and aches, especially in the morning, as well as a general sense of fatigue. In addition to pain, sleep problems, and fatigue, patients with fibromyalgia may also experience the following symptom complex: problems with memory, concentration, and other cognitive functions, sometimes referred to as fibrofog, depression or mood problems, irritable bowel syndrome, migraines and other headaches, and muscle issues, including weakness, tingling, and spasms. Symptoms may vary over the course of time. Occasionally, symptoms will improve. However, in some cases, symptoms, especially pain, may worsen over time. Just as there are multiple symptoms in fibromyalgia, there are also multiple treatment options. The goal of treatments for fibromyalgia is typically focused on symptom management and pain reduction. Treatment may require visits to multiple healthcare professionals with different areas of expertise. It often begins with non-drug therapies, such as physical therapy, exercise regimens, and fitness programs, massage and relaxation techniques. If initial treatment does not help, various medications and additional non-drug therapies may be prescribed. 3 drugs are currently approved by the FDA for managing pain and other fibromyalgia symptoms: Lyrica, approved June 2007, Cymbalta, approved June 2008, and Savella, approved January 2009. Lyrica and Cymbalta were approved for other indications before being approved for the management of fibromyalgia. Savella is the first drug approved only for the management of fibromyalgia, based on response to 3 different measures: 30% or greater decrease in pain severity, a patient rating indicating significant symptom improvement, and significant progress in at least one of 2 different measures of physical function. Of course, all medications pose potential risk. Possible side effects from one or more of the 3 approved medications include, but are not limited to, increased risk of suicidal thinking, peripheral edema or swelling in the arms or legs, serotonin syndrome or neuroleptic malignant syndrome, which are potentially life-threatening conditions, sudden in onset, seizures, liver damage, elevated blood pressure and heart rate, and abnormal bleeding. Clinical response to medication varies. Not all patients who take approved therapies for fibromyalgia will see an improvement. Other drugs that patients and healthcare providers use to treat fibromyalgia include sleeping aids, pain relievers, anti-seizure drugs, antidepressants, and muscle relaxants. There is a need for additional treatments to both better manage symptoms and treat the underlying condition. In addition to medications, non-drug therapies used to help manage pain and other symptoms of fibromyalgia include behavioral therapies, such as setting activity limits, light exercise, massage, yoga, acupuncture, dietary changes, practicing methods of improving sleep, and psychological therapy or other emotional support. Combinations of drugs and non-drug therapies can be effective for some patients. Many patients develop a custom treatment regimen aimed at treating the symptoms that impact them most. In diseases like fibromyalgia, which is not fully understood, input from patients is especially important. Patient-related outcomes, or PROs, can represent direct measures of treatment benefit in clinical trials. However, all measurements need to be evaluated in well-conducted, placebo-controlled, or double-blinded randomized clinical trials. Patient-reported outcomes highlight the patient's unique ability to contribute to the field of drug development. The FDA encourages the development of well-defined and reliable PRO instruments that capture clinical benefit concepts that are important to patients and the reason for today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you to my FDA colleagues for setting the stage for this meeting. And I'm going to now provide a little bit of information on what the discussion will look like, and give you an overview of the discussion format. Next slide, please. As we said, we have the two topics that we're going to be discussing. The first one is the symptoms that matter most to you. And that what we're really looking for is which symptoms have the most significant impact on your life, and what are the specific health effects and how they affect you. How do these symptoms affect your ability to do specific activities? And the more concrete you can be about this, the better that we understand in the types of terms and the ways that we have to think about symptoms and how they relate to treatments. And we'd also like to know a little bit about the specific impacts that you have from a flare. When you have an exacerbation or a worsening of all of your symptoms, how does that compare to a more average day, if you have an average day? And then after we finish that discussion, we'll move into the topic 2, which is the current approaches to treating fibromyalgia. So what are you doing to treat your fibromyalgia? And we'll be focusing on the pharmaceutical treatments, but we also do want to hear about the full range of treatments that you do to address your condition. How well these treatments work for you, and what specific ways, what specific symptoms do they address? What are their biggest downsides? And what would you look for in an ideal treatment if we assumed that there's no yet a cure for fibromyalgia? What could treatments do to help improve your life right now? As our format, we're first going to hear from a panel of patients, and I'm going to ask the patients from topic 1 to make their way up to the front, and you've got some name tags. And we've been working with these panels since December. They've been with us along the way. I am proud to say that all the panelists identified for the first meeting are all able to be and participate here today. That is how committed you all are to this, that you're willing to go for round 2 of this meeting. The panels have prepared comments about 3 minutes to describe their story, their responses to the first set of questions, and give us a good foundation that we can build on a facilitated discussion to build on what we hear from them. The panelists reflect a range of experiences with fibromyalgia, and some also represent fibromyalgia or pain organizations. Once we hear from all these patients up front, we will then move the conversation out into the audience, and we'll all be able to participate, again building on the experiences shared by the panel. So we'll ask questions. My FDA colleagues up here are the real experts on this condition, so they'll help me by asking detailed follow-ups as they see fit. And just please raise your hand to respond, and we have some mic runners coming out who will be working the microphones for you. This is very much talk show style if you haven't seen one of our meetings run already. Please state your name before answering. If you're comfortable, state your full name, but if you, at a minimum, please just state your first name. Next slide. Next slide. So we also have a chance for polling questions, and this has worked well in the past. I'm going to ask for the clickers to be handed out. We've got these, great technology in these little clickers that will enable the patients, primarily the patients, maybe the patient representatives for a few questions, to directly participate in the discussion by responding to a few polling questions. This gives us an idea of what experiences are in the room, who's here today, and some thoughts on a few of the discussion topics that we have, so we can get a sense of the range of experiences in the room. It's not at all a survey, and if you don't feel comfortable answering any questions, it's completely voluntary. We're not using this for any kind of scientific purposes. We do ask that it's patients and patient representatives only, and we also ask, please return the clickers. They do absolutely no good outside of FDA's campus. I don't even think they're that pretty to put on the coffee table. They're just give them back to us. Web participants, you can participate too through the polling, through the webcast, and we encourage you to do so. It really gives us a good snapshot of who's online. And web participants, you can also add comments through the webcast, and although they might not be all read or summarized today, especially if we have hundreds of people on the webcast. We will try to summarize what we can, and they are all being recorded, and they will be incorporated into our report. We'll also occasionally go to the phone lines to give you another opportunity to contribute, and that information will be provided through the webcast at the appropriate time. Next slide. And you have other chances, patients and patient representatives have other chances to participate. Even if you know people who aren't able to participate to the meeting today, encourage them to participate by sending us a comment. And we would like your comments as well after the meeting. We have comments through what we call the public docket, and this is a website that's run by the federal government that allows us to receive information from the public. So you'll go to the website, the slides will be posted after this meeting, so you can go to this slide for this information, or we have this information on our website. You go to the link, you click on Comment Now, and you can submit a comment in a comment box, or you can upload a document that's on your computer to submit a comment. Anyone is welcome to comment. It doesn't have to just be a patient or patient representative. Okay? So there's a few ground rules that I like to be really clear about because they help ensure that we have the most productive and respectful conversation for FDA's sake and for your sake as well. We do encourage patients to contribute to the dialogue. We really want to hear from all of you. And if you're a patient and you're in the back, please come to the front. It's as close as you can be to the front is very helpful. Caregivers and advocates, you are welcome to contribute as well. The FDA and industry and other government in the audience, we are so glad to see you. We just ask for you to be in listening mode today. FDA is here to listen. As I said, they have an important role at the FDA panelists to help me ask follow-up questions. We might not be able to provide information if you have questions today. So we're again here in listening mode. Our discussion today is going to focus on those two topics that I outlined, the symptoms and the treatments. This does not mean there's not a range of other important topics around fibromyalgia and helping to ensure that patients get all the care and support that they need in their lives. Our conversation today is intended to focus on the things that FDA can most concretely hold on to and address. So if there are other topics that you want to discuss, you can feel free to discuss those in the open public session of today's meeting. At the end of our discussion topics, there's a sign-up sheet out of the registration table. You can sign up. It's first come, first serve, and we'll determine how much time you have by the number of people that sign up, typically about 3 minutes. I want to say another thing about the flow of the discussion today. The discussion topic is going to focus on symptoms, and I think the best way to have that conversation is we will address symptom by symptom and expand upon each. So my ask today is when you want to raise your hand to comment on something, please stay as close as you can as the question that's being asked. You will have your chance to address another symptom that you face later, or if you haven't yet talked about it and we get to the end, then I'll ask if there were other topics that you wanted to raise that are relevant to this. This will make sure that the conversation goes as smoothly as possible and that we let everyone who gets a chance who wants to have a chance to speak can do so. The views expressed today are personal opinions, and so we just respect everyone's personal opinions as their own expressions. Of course, respect for one another is paramount, and our other meetings that has always been the case. So these meetings have been so respectful. They're really a community, and for those on the webcast, I know you can't see the folks in the room, but there's really a connection here, and there's a lot of energy that's in the room as we're having these conversations. So let us, the FDA, know how we're doing. We have evaluations at the registration desk. These are very important to us, and we really do take them to heart on how we can continue to improve upon our process as we go through other meetings. With that, we're going to test out the clickers, I think. Can we have the next slide? Okay, yes. So this is our chance to test out the clickers. Does everyone up here, do you have clickers? Can we have a few clickers for the up front? We ask the hardest questions first. Again, this gives us a chance to see who's in the room. So if you've got the clicker, you're going to do the corresponding letter, and if you're on the web, you're going to do the Adobe. And the first question is, where do you live? Within the Washington, D.C. metro area, including the Virginia, Maryland suburbs, or outside of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. So if you can click your little clicker. Okay. And if we can have the results. Okay. So 2/3 of you came from outside of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. That is fantastic. We are so appreciative. We're appreciative of anyone who traverses the Beltway to get here, but a special shout out to those of you who have traveled a long distance, especially if you are also planning on doing that unfortunate December meeting. So thank you. On the web?
It's on now? Oh. On the web, we have about 90% from outside of DC. So.
Okay. So we have a very nice representation hopefully from all over. Okay. The next question, please. Do you have fibromyalgia? Yes, A, or B, no? Okay. The responses? Okay. So it looks like there's quite a few patient representatives and caretakers and loved ones here. And we also very much appreciate your support and your contribution as well to this. So it looks like we have about 30 people living with fibromyalgia in the room, if I did the math correctly in real time. And we're so appreciative. Let's have the next question. What is your age? Oh, and from now on, let's stay with only if you answered yes to having fibromyalgia, answer the rest of the questions. So is your age younger than 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 50, 51 to 60, 61 to 70, or 71 and greater? Okay, we have a very nice spread, not representing as much people younger than 30, but that's to be expected knowing the condition. But we have quite a few people here who are in their 60s, and again, a range from the 30s to the 60s. So great to see that diversity. On the web?
Yes, on the web we have a little bit different spread. For the younger than 30, we have about 10%, 31 to 40, about 20%, as well as for 41 to 50. And then we see a jump for 51 to 60 up to about 30%. And we have a little bit lower from the 61 to 70. We have about 18%.
Great. So we have a wide range across in both web and in person. Okay. Are you male or female? Okay. Can we have the results? Okay, yeah. Okay, so 90% are female, and we have some male representation here. Again, it matches our expectations, but we thank everyone who's here, especially the men in the group. On the web, is it about the same?
It's about 20% male, 80% female.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there more? All right. How long have you had the symptoms of fibromyalgia? Less than 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 to 20 years, more than 20 years, or you're not sure? All right, so we have many people who have lived with this condition for a long time, represented here today, with the more than 20 years being the largest group. On the web?
It's similar, a little bit more skewed towards the shorter duration of having symptoms.
Thank you very much. I think there's one last polling question here. Do you have a physician-confirmed diagnosis of fibromyalgia? Yes, no, or I'm not sure. Okay. Yes, over 90% of you do have one, have a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, and we understand that it might have been a long road to get there. And we do have a few folks in here who do not have one, who are not sure. So, on the web, is it similar? Okay. I think that's it for the polling questions. Is that correct? Okay. Good. Now I can stop talking and let the panelists talk. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We have one panelist, one person who was supposed to be here today. She's been working with us since December, as I said, but she informed us after the weekend that she is experiencing a very severe flare. So we are going to accommodate her and let her share her story over the web. And if she is available, is she ready? Is it ready? Just give us a few minutes. We've never done this before.
Operator, is Lori ready to go to the phone?
Okay, you know what we'll do? We will wait on Lori, and we will have her come on when we get all the pieces together. And so what we'll do is we have the four up here, and we'll let you go through.
Hold on. Do you want to go to her now?
Is Lori ready?
I think so. All right,
Okay.
Operator, you can put her line on.
Hello?
Lori, hi, this is Sarah.
Hi.
Hi, Lori. Oh, we can see you great.
Wish I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people and possibly make some new friends.
So we, give us 1 second, Lori. We're going to make sure there's volume so that everyone can hear you. Can you test? Can you say something?
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Is that okay? Can everyone hear good enough? We got thumbs up in the back. So, and the transcriptionist, give me 1 second. All right, Lori, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I had hoped to be there in person, to meet a lot of different people, make new friends, because we all go through this. And thank you so much for accommodating me, because like everyone else, it means so much to be able to share my story. Okay, so I won't take up all the time. Going according to the questions that were asked by the panel. Of all the symptoms, like everyone else, pain, fatigue, and memory difficulties are the most debilitating for me. Having had this insidious illness for 18 years now, I've experienced more types of pain than I've ever known the body could create. I had pain 24/7. Normally I live with a deep, mild throbbing that feels centralized in my body. During flares, it becomes a deep, grinding pain that feels as if someone is kneading my muscles. Other times I can experience spasming, burning, or a type of vascular sensation that makes motion, like riding in a car, difficult to tolerate. On a regular basis, I have mild to moderate fatigue. At its mild state, I feel like someone who's been on the go for over 24 hours, dragging but able to muddle through. The standard for me is like someone with a bad cold where I'm forced to rest every so often after any form of activity. In the worst state, I'm sleeping the majority of the day, awakening and still feeling lousy. In terms of memory, I live with Post-it notes, even having to record important information that may have been told to me just moments ago. In addition to the memory difficulties, word finding is another, even more embarrassing symptom for me. I don't like having to speak to people during those times. You have no idea how frustrating and humiliating, for example, being at a deli and trying to recall the name for tuna fish, finally ending up having to point to it from behind the window. The more I struggle to recall words, the more distressed I become, only worsening the ability to think. There are many times I can no longer do, and what I can do is very limited. Anything that requires me sitting, standing, and leaning for long periods of time is challenging. Using my hands, arms, shoulders without taking breaks can lead to locked muscles in my neck that can cause a headache that lasts up to 3 days. On my good days, I'm able to do a couple of things like walk my dog or a portion of housework like a load of laundry or unload the dishwasher. On my bad days, basically the world could fall apart and I wouldn't care. I remain in hibernation mode, being in bed most of the day. Climbing a couple of stairs is agonizing. My leg muscles feel leaden, stiffened, and weak, and almost as if they were going to rip if I continued to walk. Sometimes I'm too tired to even take a nighttime shower. I have heightened sensory modalities during these times. Sounds are amplified, smells intensified and nauseating, touch grating and irritating against my skin. I feel like a car being revved up while in park. My mind is racing with thoughts, making sleep difficult, and everything just seems annoying to me. The pain gets intense to the point that I want to rip my skin off. Over the years, my condition has gradually worsened. I was once in a beloved career in clinical research, and now I'm forced to go on disability for the past 3 years. I have bad days and good days intermixed, never knowing when they will occur or to what extent. Weather, stress, and overexertion of my muscles create my flares. And of all my worries, the loss of what independence I do have to the point of becoming wheelchair-bound or bedridden is most predominant. My worst fear of having to live the rest of my life this way.
Thank you very much, Lori. We very much appreciate it. I'm going to ask my FDA colleagues if they have any follow-up questions, if we still have Lori on the line. Any specific follow-up questions for Lori?
Lori, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing for your symptoms?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
What types of things are you doing for your symptoms?
Mainly, I take medication, Cymbalta, and Ultram, and the Neurontin for when I have flares, and it helps me to get about 3.5 hours restorative sleep a night on a good night. I do a little bit of meditation. I've gone to the chiropractor where they've manipulated and taught me exercises so that I can try to catch the intensity of my shoulders and arms so that I don't get the headaches. And it has helped a bit. I don't get as many headaches as I used to. A lot of support. I have a big fan base from a lot of friends that I went to school with on Facebook, and a lot of friends that I've established over Facebook who have fibromyalgia, that we can support each other and validate each other. I have a very supportive husband who's helped me through a lot of this. So emotional support has been the biggest factor, or I would be profoundly depressed. I do try to go out and walk as much as I can. On a good day, I can walk up to a mile at a certain pace. Stretching sometimes seems to get into the grating muscles, but sometimes it locks it up. Hot showers help a lot too. It seems to release something at times with the muscles. I really can't think of anything else, but those are the main things that I rely on to try to help decrease the pain and some of the other symptoms as much as possible.
Thank you so much, Lori. We have one other follow-up question.
Have you identified what causes the flare? What causes your flares? Do you know?
What causes a flare for you, Lori?
The worst is weather. Any change at all, an increase or decrease in the temperature. Cold days like this, humidity that when it's humid and hot, I get the nausea and the burning pain and the exhaustion. The cold temperatures bring on the stiffness, the tightness, the hurting pain, more so. So I know the differences in those types of flares. That seems to be the worst. Over the 3 years that I've been on disability, I've had to really learn to handle stress and learn to go through, we all go through sort of a grieving process, to learn to accept what we can't change in the new lifestyle, the new life, whatever you want to call life, that we have. So trying to handle life, but trying to not get overwhelmed by it and take step by step has reduced some of the stress. So mainly the weather is my biggest flare of all things.
Thank you very much, Lori. Lori's going to be having to jump off now, so I would like to give Lori a round of applause, especially if you heard your own experience shared in her story. Thank you very much, Lori.
Thank you.
And now we will start with Jacob. You'll have to just turn on your microphones with the little button.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Smith. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, but now I reside in the Bronx, New York. I'm a father of 2 beautiful girls and 1 beautiful wife. In traveling from New York, my purpose for addressing you today was really to assist you in gaining a deep understanding about my journey with fibromyalgia. So let me begin by saying that in 2009, for no unexplained reason, I began experiencing swollen feet and hands, in which I was rushed to the emergency room. After no determined diagnosis, I returned home only to experience an increase in body pain over the next year. Unfortunately, in February of 2010, 1 week after my youngest daughter was born, I attempted to stand up, which led to me losing my balance and falling on the floor. At that moment, my wife assisted me in regaining my balance, resulting in me resting in the bed for the next 2 days. Post those 2 days, I scheduled my first doctor appointment to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in Upper Manhattan. Finally, after numerous emergency room visits and several x-rays and tests, it was diagnosed in May of 2013 that I had the central nervous system disease entitled fibromyalgia. Over time, I would regularly notice the daily impact that the disease had on my life relative to the symptoms involved. Of all of the symptoms that I have experienced due to the disease, the 3 most significant ones currently impacting my life today is the chronic body pain, which can range from a deep muscle pain, chronic headaches, feet pain, leg pain, chest pain, hand pain, and an unending back pain. The second is the chronic fatigue, which can pretty much be described as like an overwhelming feeling of tiredness that is not relieved by sleep or any rest, and for which I'm experiencing right now. And the third is the, I would say, cognitive function aspect of it. I'm beginning to forget a lot and having to write a lot of things down, and my wife has begun a daily regimen of pretty much reminding me of what I have to do both for my company, my staff, and myself, and also our daughters. So frankly put, the fatigue is not your normal tiredness. Again, it's an overwhelming feeling of tiredness. And the fourth, I would say, just to add in, is a restless leg syndrome, which my legs tend to hurt all of the time, and my feet tends to stay swollen at times, or remain swollen. Initially, I was able to walk for a few days without any major swelling, but as the time progressed, the immobility of my feet became evident. Now I'm at the point where I'm able to only walk half a block before I experience that pain. Once I return home sometime to rest, I have to deal with the results of, the feet swelling and throbbing, in which my wife has begun a daily regimen also of soaking them in alcohol and hot water. To further elaborate on the point, the pain resulting from these short walks has also disallowed me to be able to give up my seat on the New York City subway, in which that bothers me because sometimes I'll see an elderly person or a mother with a child, and I'll be thinking that I really can't give up my seat, in which I really want to. Unfortunately, it's been recommended that by my physician that I may possibly have to look at the use of a power chair for mobilities on the days that I cannot walk. With that recommendation, in reality has not totally set in regarding the use of a power chair as part of my daily life. So I'm trying to incorporate a few daily and long-distance travel methods to help decrease the pain. But let me put it like this, it is yet to work. After reoccurring problems with my vision, another reoccurring problem is with my vision. When major flare-ups occur, I partially lose the use of my nearsightedness, leaving me unable to read anything for hours at a time. I remedy this episode or these episodes by just relaxing my eyelids with a warm rag over them. But the key aspect of the disease is with me living in isolation. And living with this, I've experienced social isolation simply because I am in too much pain to keep up with any social engagements. Unexpected flare-ups of pain or discomfort may surprise me, and I have gradually changed or limited my social activities. Another sign of my social isolation resulted in me withdrawing from social activities or feeling a loss of interest or pleasure in my usual activities. But I'm working to avoid social isolation by making an extra effort to stay engaged with my family and friends.
Any final thoughts, Jacob? Any parting?
Yeah, I mean, the parting thoughts is just what I'm trying to do now is put together some form of comprehensive lifestyle plan that's going to really help me shape my mind, body, and spirit so that I can remain holistically healthy with the disease.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Thank you. And Michelle?
Hi, and I want to thank the FDA for, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now can you hear me? Got it, okay. Well, I want to thank the FDA for listening to us because people don't listen, even people that aren't involved in medicine, they don't know what to make of it, and so they just don't want to listen. Fibromyalgia has been my constant companion for 26 years. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I have all of the symptoms. The pain, the exhaustion, the fog, IBS, insomnia, sensitivity to hot and cold, to name the major ones. There's a lot of little ones that I deal with. And I believe that right now I'm on a good regimen of medication. I'm able to hold down a job. I'm able to work from home when I need to. The group that I support are very supportive of me, and I feel really lucky that I have that in my life. I don't really believe my condition has changed that much over the years. The only thing that really has changed is my ability to know what I can do and what I can't do, and thereby being able to do a few more things because, okay, I can't go shopping tonight. If I do go shopping tonight, then I probably won't do anything tomorrow or the next day. And just working that into my daily life, getting sleep, making sure I go to bed at the same time every night, the same routine, and with the help of medication, I have the best track record for sleep than I've ever had in my life. From the time I was a baby, just ask my mother. So, you know, I hope that I can be hopeful to the rest of you that it doesn't need to get worse than what you have it right now, and maybe you can continue to do what you do right now with modifications in your lifestyle. The biggest challenge I have, though, and it sounds the same as what Lori and Jacob have talked about, is those attacks. Mine typically start in the morning. I will wake up like I have been hit by a bus. I'm too exhausted. Like, I'll lay there as I have to go to the bathroom, I have to go to the bathroom. It'll take me a half an hour just to be able to get out of bed, to move, to go to the bathroom. And the pain is so bad. Like, if somebody walks across the floor, I can feel that. It feels like there are knives sticking into my body. And then the next thing that comes with that is I can't even tell you what's going on because I can't get the word out of the mouth. I can't get the word into my brain. They may come out in a different order. My family is really good at understanding and helping me through that. But what it does diminish is my ability to go to work, because I certainly cannot go in and be effective if I don't know what's being said to me, if I can't respond, which sometimes I just can't respond. So those are the days I have to stay home and just wait for it to pass. And because usually at that point, if it's that bad, any of the medication I normally take doesn't work. And I'll lose 2 weeks. And that is so depressing on top of everything else. I've just lost 2 weeks. I will never get back. Things that I would have liked to do, I can't do. And my friends understand it, but extended circles, they just don't get it. So it's just a really hard thing to deal with. And the thing that made a huge impression on me was Jack Kevorkian, Dr. Death. One of his patients was a fibromyalgia patient. And I readily admit, if I thought my life was going to be one long panic attack, fibro attack, and I would never have a day where I could get up and go to work, I would call him, because it's not living. It's just not living.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And now we'll have Laura. Thank you.
Just a quick reminder to speak pretty close to the microphone so people on the web can hear you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Dugan. I am 32 years old, and I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia when I was about 16, which is a little younger than is traditionally diagnosed. I had presented with chronic pain, chronic fatigue, and saw my primary care doctor, and I remember her coming out with this green book and opening it, and there was a chart, and she looked at the chart and then, tested all the tender points on me, and I had pain in all of the tender points. And that, coupled with the fatigue and blood work to rule out things like lupus and MS and other possible diagnoses, is how I ended up with the fibromyalgia diagnosis. So at this point, I've had it for about half my life, which is sort of an unusual thing. The level of fatigue is definitely the biggest impact on my life. As I've gotten a little bit older, my pain has gotten a little bit better. I generally don't have huge pain flare-ups, but the chronic fatigue is a huge part of my life, and it affects just about every decision that I make. It's impacted relationships that I've had with significant others. My family, I think because we all sort of grew up together with me having it, it was a little bit different, so they're just sort of used to it. As I've gotten used to it, it is just a part of my daily life, but I do find that when I'm thinking of doing something or making decisions, I'm thinking, well, what time am I going to get home? So what time can I get in bed to make sure that I can get enough sleep? Insomnia has been a big problem, and it wasn't until about 2 years ago that a doctor thought to test me for a melatonin deficiency. And I was found at bedtime to be very deficient in melatonin. And so taking that now has pretty much so far cured my insomnia, which is wonderful because I've tried just about every sleep aid on the market with more misses than hits. At one point, I was on, my one doctor joked that I was on as much trazodone as they give prisoners to tranquilize them. So, it's nice to be able to take something natural to help you to go to bed, and I'm a big proponent of that as well. Most of the all of the prescription medications for fibromyalgia have not helped me in any way, and in fact, coming off of Cymbalta, even though I titered off of it, threw me into one of the worst flare-ups that I've ever had. So it's sort of a catch-22 with trying to find something that works to alleviate the symptoms. particularly of fatigue, but the whole risk-benefit scenario that was mentioned earlier. It's hard for me to tell overall if things have gotten better or worse. I do feel like my pain is a little bit better, like I said, but the fatigue, as you mentioned, it was interesting too. My mother has said too that I have never slept well from the time I was an infant. So it's interesting to see that there's some parallels there as far as that goes. And I have yet to find anything that really helps alleviate the fatigue. I have had, I think at this point, even 10 sleep studies. I've had things like periodic limb movement syndrome, I think is what it is, and delayed sleep phase syndrome and all these things thrown at me, but no real solutions to fix it. And more than anything, I would like to be able to wake up in the morning and not be tired, not have my first thought be, I want to go back to sleep.
Thank you very much, Laura. And finally, we have Sabrina.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm Sabrina Dudley Johnson. I am. Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
Now we can.
I'm Sabrina Dudley Johnson. I am a Chicago police officer disabled by injury-induced fibromyalgia. I had a series of injuries on the job. The first one was because I was arresting a person who thought I was Dionne Warwick and got upset when she found out I wasn't. And she judo flipped me, and I sprained my left arm. And then I had a fight with Stephen King, not the writer, in a enclosed small room with the lights off, and he was throwing me around the room like a rag doll. And then finally I was in a squad car that was hit by a squad car that was driven by a drunk policeman. And this all happened over a period of about 9 to 12 months. So I know to the point when my fibromyalgia started. As a result of fibromyalgia, I am now divorced. I'm going to go through, I answered the question, so I'll just go through an answer. Of all the symptoms that you experience because of your condition, which ones are the most significant? For me, the top 3 are the unrelenting, widespread, chronic pain that won't stay in one spot. You know, it starts out in the morning in the neck, and then by the afternoon it's in my lower back, and by the evening it's in my legs and feet. The next one is the ongoing fatigue. I start out in the morning really well, and about 3 p.m. I literally hit a brick wall. I'm like a cartoon character moving at 100 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden come to a complete and total stop because of the fatigue. And then for me is the constant sensory overload. I have a problem with lights and noise and smells and touching and you name it, and it affects me. And most significant is my problems with smells. I live in a multicultural condominium complex, so there's at least one family member from every culture, and when people cook, the smells seep into the common hallway, and then it seeps into my condo unit. So I can't even step out of my bedroom. I literally stuff towels underneath the doors at meal times so that I'm not attacked by smells. And if I do have to step outside when people are cooking, I either faint or I throw up. So I'm becoming a prisoner in my own home, and that's why I'm in Milwaukee right now instead of in Chicago, because now I'm in a townhouse with my daughter and I don't have to deal with that. Specific activities that I cannot do fully or that I can't do at all, I do not sleep through the night. I can hear everything going on around me. You can come into the room and have a conversation and I will respond to you. And my ex-husband bought a building because we had a conversation while I was sleeping. I can't move though. I'm paralyzed. So as much as I wanted to jump up and say, no, don't buy that building, I couldn't react. All I could do was talk to him, and I couldn't get the words out, no. I actually said yes. So I have not been able to perform in my chosen career of law enforcement since 1994. There were 2 incidents. Number 1, I was acting court sergeant, and so I'm talking to an officer, and my head bounced off the desk. I just fainted. And then the second incident, I went to requalify with my service revolver, and because of the pain in my hand, as soon as the recoil hit, I dropped the gun, and then the gun discharged the second time, and they told me, we don't need you anymore. Finally, I'm no longer married because of fibromyalgia. Back when I was diagnosed, it wasn't something that was, you know, you didn't see the commercials for it, you didn't hear about it. And a doctor told my ex-husband that it was a psychological disorder. And he went and asked his mother for advice, and she told him to go beat me back to health. And he tried. It didn't work. I still have fibromyalgia. Next question, how do your symptoms and their negative effects impact daily life? On my best days, I can go to physical therapy if they send the van to come pick me up. Or I can go visit a friend or relative if they come pick me up. Or I can go to the movies, or I can go shopping, but I can't do all those things at once. And that was something I used to love to do, was multitask and do everything all at once. Just to come to this public meeting, I had to go see my doctor, get a release saying, yes, you're fine enough to travel and sit on an airplane for an hour and a half, and make sure that I had all my medication and I had massage, and then when I go back home, I'll have massage. Normally, I would not be leaving until the day after a meeting, but I'm babysitting my wonderful 2-year-old granddaughter, so I have to go back tonight. So I know that tomorrow is going to be difficult for me. On my worst days, I can't get out of bed. That's end of story. I pull the cover up over my head and I answer people through the blanket, and that's it.
Any final thoughts?
Yes, the thing that really bothers me about fibromyalgia is the problem that I have with touch. Having my 2-year-old granddaughter hug me hurts so much. I would like to push her away, but I don't want to. You know, it's the most innocent thing that you can receive is a hug from a baby. And my worst fear is that one day I will become a prisoner in my own home because of fibromyalgia, because I can't get around.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. And thank you to all the panelists again. I am going to suggest that we move right into the facilitated discussion. And there may be some follow-up questions for you as we address the different symptoms that will go along. And somewhere there is a microphone for me. This is the part that we call talk show style. So I'm going to be coming out into the front. Can you hear me now? Oh, yes, you can. Yes. Okay. There's a lot of machines up here, so I'm not sure exactly where I'll stand for this. But the first thing I want to do is to give the panelists a round of applause. We thank you. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of preparation to come up here, and we are so thankful for you sharing your courageously sharing your stories. And as I said, they set a good foundation for the rest of the conversation that we'll have. So I want to ask a question first about how many patients or loved ones, if the patient's not here, how many of you heard your own situations in at least one of the panel members who spoke today? Okay, so just about everyone did. Did anyone, I'm not going to ask you to explain now, but does anyone have a completely different experience than that was at all shared? Okay, we'll come to you in a little bit then. So we heard about the chronic pain, of course, and we are going to talk a little bit about that, but as my colleague said, that is more understood maybe than other aspects of fibromyalgia. So then we're going to delve into fatigue, the cognitive problems, I think we heard one called the fibrofog, and other things. So let's first talk a little bit about chronic pain. We heard the several ways that the chronic pain manifested. Oh, actually, wait. I'm getting ahead of myself. We want to have a polling question first. Okay. I'm sorry. I've only done 6 of these. You'd think I would remember the order by now. But the important thing we want to do is to get a sense from you in the audience and from the panel members and on the web of which of these symptoms are most significant to your daily life. This just helps give us a sense of what's in there. This is a long list, and you can use your clickers to choose up to 3 symptoms that you would say would be your top 3. Chronic pain, fatigue or lack of energy, difficulty concentrating or memory problems. And here I would say if you would put anything in the category of that fibro fog. Sleep problems, sensitivity to light, sound, or other stimuli, gastrointestinal issues, depression or anxiety, headaches, or some other symptom that doesn't fit in any of the other categories. This is a hard question, I know. Okay, I think we can go on to the results. Okay. So I don't think this is, I think we might have a technical malfunction here. So let's just do a quick raise of hands, shall we? And then we'll come and see what the web is. So how many would put chronic pain as one of their top 3? Okay, so just about everyone. Fatigue or lack of energy? Okay, significant portion. Difficulty concentrating, memory problems, or fibro fog? Okay. Sleep problems. Okay. What's interesting to me as I'm looking out is that different people are raising your hands. You're not all experiencing the same. You wouldn't put all the same in your top 3. Sensitivity to light, sound, or other stimuli. Okay, so not very many. I think we have a few. Gastrointestinal issues. Okay, a few. Depression or anxiety. Okay, a few more. Headaches. Okay. And something else that doesn't fit into any of these categories. Okay. All right, so it looked like the chronic pain, fatigue, and the difficulty concentrating, the sleep problems were the top ones chosen. And on the web?
On the web, 98% of people said chronic pain, 75 said fatigue, and then it was difficulty concentrating and sleep problems, both around 40%, and then about 20% said depression or anxiety.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So now we can talk about chronic pain a little bit. We heard various ways that it manifested, including the tender spots, the muscle aches and joint pains, and then that moving, the pain moving in your body. Just a quick show of hands, how many of you have the tender spots? And when let's do the quick show of hands, let's say, which would you put that like in your 1 or 2 top aspects of pain that are the most bothersome to you? Okay, the tenders. Okay. What about the stiffness pain or sort of the all-over body pain? Okay. A throbbing pain all over? Okay. What about that pain to be touched that Sabrina talked about? All right. Were there any other types of pain that you didn't hear described that you want to talk about? Okay, right here. Do we have? Oh, yeah. There's a microphone runner. If you could just state your name, please.
My name's Valerie. I get like a burning pain. The way I describe it to my doctor is if you were running or working out and that like burning that you get after exercising, I get that from just standing up and walking in the kitchen or just standing there, trying to cook a meal or just standing there. I just get this horrible burning coming over me, and it's excruciating pain, and it's miserable to live with. I get it mostly in my upper legs, my arms, sometimes my back and my neck, and it's just miserable to live with.
Valerie, is it Valerie?
Yes.
Okay, Valerie, how many of you experience what Valerie experiences? Okay. Are there other types of pain? Yes, right here, and then we'll go into the back over there to the gentleman.
Hot stabbing pain.
Deborah?
Hot stabbing pain.
Okay, stabbing? Like
hot poker
like
just going right in.
Okay. Does that resonate with people? Okay, okay. And then the gentleman back there. You don't have to stand. You can stay sitting.
My name is Lewis, and I'd like to say that of all those things you had listed, there's only one that I don't have. So it was very difficult to pick the top three. Headaches have always been my major problems, along with the real tight shoulders and this kind of thing. And I would liken it to, if you can imagine making a mold of your head that's a 1/4 inch too small all the way around, and put it on, it's crushing from every direction. Just absolutely crushing type headache. And this goes on 24/7. I'd also like to mention quickly that I feel a little odd in here because I've had it for so long. Virtually all of my adult life and part of my childhood, and I'm 63, will be 64 in a couple of days. So I was diagnosed with fibrositis back in those days.
Thank you, Lewis, for sharing your wisdom then. So the headaches, what Lewis described, I saw some head noddings. We are interested in hearing a little bit more about headaches. So can you raise your hand if you had headaches? And you'd put them kind of in the top? Okay. Were there any follow-up questions about headaches, how they manifest themselves that the panel would like to know about? Okay. Does anyone want to describe a situation, an experience that's different than what Lewis described regarding their headaches? We have one in the back there. Let's go right here. First out, Jenny, let's go right here close to you. Right there. And then we'll go in the back. I think, can you turn the mic on?
In 1992, after 8 years struggling, it came as a result of physical injury, followed by emotional trauma, and I ended up with post-stress traumatic syndrome. Any medication, I did not stay long-term because it just gave me side effect, but I have been able to manage it with 3 main things. That is watching about the diet, nutrition, exercise to my limitation and what my body can tolerate, and stress management. Something that, as I aged, is coming now is movement. I think it is as a part of psychological, because movement gave me relief, and jumping from one movement to the other all the time. At the end of the day, exhaustion, and can't go to sleep. And now I am at the point that I am very active. Sometimes I feel like I am hyperactive to do something. Go around, pick up something light, move, walk, and this is the way that my life is. And as a result of that, a lot of exhaustion.
Thank you very much. We'll be getting into the treatments and the management after the break in our second topic, so we'll be delving into that a little bit deeper. I think we had one more comment on headaches in the back, in the black shirt, black sweater. Oh, okay, a different type. Okay. So, okay, we'll take one more headache comment from, I believe, Elizabeth. Yes, from Elizabeth.
Hi, thanks. I have a huge issue with getting the headaches with it where they turn into severe migraines. For me, it's if I try and carry any items that are more than like a half a pound, computer work, and actually vibrations. If I'm in a car, road vibrations, bumpy roads, that's a big thing that sets it off. So I work with it with a neurologist, but with taking the Cymbalta, you have to watch how much of Imitrex you take. So it's always a balance. But for me, actually, what helps the most for the headaches is ice. Not heat, but ice. Okay. And then just the one other symptom that I just wanted to mention for me that is slightly different is hot feels like it's scalding. I have to have my husband or use a thermometer to check the temperature of baths and showers before I get in, because for about 20 seconds I feel like it's scalding me, and then my body adjusts. And so, you know, I don't trust myself enough. I kind of know where the dial can be now, and that's okay. But that's something that I've definitely has gotten worse over time.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I saw some head nods as you were describing that, so I think others share that. I want to move into fatigue because I think that all 5 of the panelists mentioned it, and at least 2 of you really focused on it in depth. And I believe that, let's have another show of hands to see, did you hear your experience with fatigue reflected in their comments on fatigue? Sure. Okay. Did anyone experience something completely different about their fatigue, at a different time of day when it hits or under different circumstances? Okay, we have one in the back there. And if you could state your name, please.
Oh, Nancy Shoemaker. I'm exhausted in the morning. I mean, for me, well, and the aches and pains are in the morning. And then once I get warmed up, well, or I think of it as warmed up. I don't mean really warmed up, but I mean once my body gets moving, then I'm doing fine. And then I do have the crash in the middle of the afternoon. So I've got like, you know, so many hours in the middle of the day there. It's like I'm a person. Go for it. Do it. And then it's gone.
Okay.
And equally, you know, dumb as a day-old woodpecker. So, you know.
Okay, so we've heard about that very slow start in the morning. Not to try to minimize that, but what I'll describe it as a very slow start, and then the crash that happens sometime in the afternoon or later in the day. Anyone else have a different way that fatigue hits you? Okay, right here in the middle.
Early in the evening, I just have to go to bed. I can't sit up. I mean, I can watch TV, but I just got to lie down. I have to lie down. My body feels like I've been like something rolled over top of me with a Big Mac truck or something. But yeah.
And is this fatigue that you're talking about when this crash happens, is it the type of fatigue where you have to stop what you're doing and you want to go to bed? Or is it the kind of fatigue where you don't feel like going to sleep, you just need to sit and veg? Okay. So I'm hearing one or the other or both. So we have, you're nodding, so let's take the microphone. And is it Helen? Helen.
Mine is not the kind, I'm sorry, my name is Sue Walker.
Oh, Sue.
Mine is not the kind where I have to go to sleep. It's the sit and veg. It's just, and my pattern, as long as I've got the mic, is a little bit different as well. My crash is not so much dependent on time of day as on activity, and it's completely unpredictable. So it's very difficult for me to go out and do things because I never know when that crash is going to strike.
Okay, thank you. One more here, and then there's one right behind. Kathy? Mm-hmm.
My name is Kathy King. For my fatigue, what generally happens to me is I'll have done something the day before, and I wake up the next day, and there's just total exhaustion. And there have been times when I've been sitting in a chair and thought about raising my hand and literally couldn't do it. It wouldn't go. And those are my days that I have to call in sick. Thankfully, I'm still able to work full time. But a
delayed response in the fatigue, I think, is what I'm hearing.
It's amazing how tired you can get.
Okay. So I have a question in follow-up. I'll ask my question first, and then we'll see. We like to tease out is how much your fatigue is related to your pain. So a question is, if you are getting a good night's sleep, or if you don't feel fatigued, does that have an effect on the other symptoms that you feel? I'm seeing some head nods. Maybe we can have someone over here describe over.
My symptoms are directly related to how much rest I've had, and that's one of the ways that I manage my symptoms is by making sure I get enough rest. If I get overtired, which like most everybody else, I have the insomnia symptom as well, I'm guaranteed to have a flare-up. So it's directly connected, the fatigue and the pain.
Thanks, Sarah. Does that resonate with folks? I see a lot of heads nodding. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Sabrina.
Yeah, I think that my pain is related to my sleep. I got a CPAP machine last year, and when I use the CPAP machine religiously, my pain level is pretty low. And if I go a day or two and, I don't need it now, then my pain level goes back up.
Okay. Any other follow-up questions? So Bob.
There's a theory, hypothesis that we've heard a lot, that it's the underlying sleep disorder that is really at the center of fibromyalgia, and that it is the nexus for all the other symptoms, the pain and everything else. I'd like to hear a little bit more from people. Two people have said that sort of fits the theory, but I'd like to hear more from other people, because if we can find a drug that treats the sleep disorder, is that going to solve all the problems or not? Or
okay, so we'll go with someone who hasn't spoken. So how about I don't know, Shay? How about Shay? And then maybe next Nancy, I think, right?
Hi, I'm Shay. My disorder kind of started off with about a year of not sleeping at all after I came back from a deployment, and definitely was the worst then. But since then, I've gotten all kinds of behavioral therapy to try to adjust my sleep, and I'm definitely sleeping way better now, and even sometimes without the help of medications. I still am fatigued to the point that sometimes I've left places and gone I have to go sleep in my car right now, this minute. And even times when I'm not particularly fatigued, my pain level's still just as bad. I think the fatigue actually sometimes almost kind of helps, because I can focus on that and go to bed. So
thank you, Shay. Nancy, would you like to follow up on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that mine started with a 6-month period of not sleeping literally for 6 months, and that's when I got the diagnosis. So I think sleep does definitely have some sort of connection. Mm-hmm. And then now, 18 years later, I found something for sleep, and my symptoms are much better. So finding something that helps with your sleep, I think, is something that people should look for. Okay.
We have one more. We'll go to one more in the back. But as we're going back there, how many of you agree with an answer of Bob's question with what Shay and Nancy have said? Can you raise your hands? Okay. And then one more.
Is it on? Yeah. My name is Lee Alikel, and I work for the NIH, but I have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia a number of years ago. And I don't have, true confessions, the kind of severe symptoms that many of you have in this room. But I do have a myriad of symptoms. I also work for an institute that is vitally interested in the sleep-pain connection. And we're holding a workshop. It's not open to the public because we're just beginning to really try to grapple with this intersection between sleep and pain. And in particular, how do sleep disturbances impact chronic pain and actually lead to chronic pain. So we are vitally, vitally interested in this, and I think it's really good that you're having this today, and I think it's so important for researchers to be aware of this and to really listen to the patients in the community. So thank you very much.
In follow-up, could you please let us know when that conference is going to be?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Thank you.
So I think we're going to move on from the fatigue and move on to other things, but I think what we've identified is a place that if you're on the web, if you can submit, write in a web comment on this, it's going to be captured. You in the room didn't all get a chance to speak about your fatigue issues, so please take a moment and write a follow-up on your fatigue. If you submit comments to us through our website, we'd really be interested in hearing more exactly that relationship. We have Sharon?
Yes, thank you. And when you do, if you are planning to provide us additional feedback, and we would love to see it, one of the questions that we struggle with sometimes is trying to differentiate the type of tiredness that comes from simply not sleeping. And is that the same or different from when a patient with fibromyalgia reports fatigue? Is it qualitatively different, or is it simply just fatigue in the setting of apparent adequate sleep? So if you have some thoughts on that, we'd love to hear that as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to take a moment and see if there have been any comments on pain or fatigue that have come in from the web.
Yeah, there's been a lot of comments. Many have been echoing what's been said in the room, so I won't go through and talk about all the different pain and fatigue related symptoms. Just some of the highlights of what have been said that may have build upon or be slightly different from what was said in the room. There was a lot of talk about agreeing that either some people were saying that the fatigue and pain are very interrelated, and they're not sure which necessarily will cause the other. Some people said that for them, they've not seen any relation between the two, so there's a little bit of differentiation there. There's a lot of talk about vision issues and eye movement pain, as well as vertigo and other balance issues that were related, or at least potentially related to when there was pain. And then there were a lot of things related to these symptoms that kind of were secondary effects, an inability to work, social isolation, and there was a couple comments about how this is much more of a concern, especially for children, how might that affect them in the long term. And then also, inability to travel because of inability to sleep flat, and inability to even do things like clean your own house and stay up to date on, kind of normal daily activities. And then there were also a couple points about stigma related to the pain and needing to seek multiple doctors. You lose credibility potentially within the medical community. It looks like you're doctor shopping. Also, in terms of just needing special accommodations for pain or fatigue, one person described it as older people look at him like he's a liar or a fake when he requests accommodations in public. And then others have mentioned that they obviously need to rely on their spouse to help care for both pain and fatigue. And in many cases, people said that this has led to divorce.
Okay. So it's echoing what we hear, and if you're on the web, you can't see it, but you're getting a lot of head nods in the room with people agreeing with you on those. Vision. One more thing, Jan.
Hi, I'm Jan Chambers, the president of the National Fibromyalgia and Chronic Pain Association, and I appreciate this, Sarah. I have in my hand the survey that we completed with 2,157 patients. And I want to just comment about this fatigue, Sarah. The kind of questions that we asked indicated that the fatigue was so exhausting that people could not pick up a pencil, could not trust themselves to hold a cup. And when we talk about sitting down, as Sue mentioned, just that overall, sometimes it's that complete exhaustion, like there's no energy coming out of the cells.
Thank you. Okay, I want to get into a few more of the other symptoms because we want to make sure we address those and acknowledge those. I just because it was on the web, before I forget, we had vision, eye pain and vision problems were mentioned. I don't believe that was one of the symptoms that was up on the web. So I'm going to ask, can you raise your hand if eye pain or vision problems is significant for you? Okay, we heard one or two examples on the panel. Does anyone have a very different experience of how their eye pain handles? We'll go with Andrea first over there, and then here. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sharon. What I've noticed with my vision changes is I have days where I have to constantly blink because I just can't focus. Everything is fuzzy looking, and so that means those are the days I hope I don't have to do computer work, or I hope I don't have to do a lot of tiny reading or proofing.
Thank you very much. And up here to Heather.
Hi, my name's Heather. When I have a really bad pain flare, my vision will change. I go to the eye doctor, I have to get new contacts because my old ones no longer fit properly because my eyes will swell up. And the strength of the prescription also changes. So it makes, I mean, I can't buy new glasses every time they change.
Mm-hmm.
At least with contacts, they're disposable, they're only for 2 weeks, so it's a little bit more cost effective. But it is a big strain because I'm like, well, should I be driving now because I don't have the new contacts and my old glasses don't exactly help me see. Mm-hmm. So it is a limitation.
Thank you very much, Heather. Yes, so we'll go with Jacob first.
Yeah, I am going to pretty much echo what this young lady over here said about the constant batting of the eyes. I'm in the process of doing that right now where I have to bat my eyes because my vision is somewhat off and have to make myself deliberately cry in order to restore that vision to some degree. So I can totally relate to what you're saying.
Okay, great. And then Sabrina?
My doctor just diagnosed me with dry eye syndrome, and I think that's what everybody's talking about with the batting of the eyes, so I'm constantly putting drops in my eyes. And I also have a problem when I wake up in the morning. For about an hour, I can't see. It's like looking through a veil, and I just have to sit there and bat my eyes and wait until my vision clears and comes back.
Okay. I would like to, if we could, I'm going to move on to the fibro fogs. I think that was number 2, if I recall, from the raise of hands in terms of what you're experiencing. I'd like to delve into that a little bit. We heard some very vivid descriptions of how that manifests itself, how you experience this fibro fog, the lack of concentration and the forgetfulness. I'd like to see if there's anyone who wants to describe a different experience with the fog. And we'll go here first, back in the back.
Hello, my name's Gwen Herman, and when I have fibro fog, it's usually I've been trying to ignore my pain, and I'm trying to work through something, so what will happen is that I don't realize barriers around me, so I'll walk into walls, or I'll hit something, or I drop things, I drop glasses.
So can I follow up on that? But with a show of hands, how many of you find that if you aren't in pain, that you are not experiencing the fog? You're not in pain, and you don't. So if you can have the fog even if you're in pain. Let me put it that way. What? Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, I stand corrected. Thank you very much, Deborah. Okay. If you are not in your more extreme levels of pain, is your fogginess clearer in some sense? Is it related? No, they're not related. Okay. So in the yellow shirt.
Real quick, for those on the web, we're going to go to the phone in about 5 minutes or so. So if you'd like to call in, there's some instructions on the web for you.
And when you go on the phone, what we would like to really focus on, because we only get a few phone calls, is if you have a symptom that just has not been talked about by the panelists or in the audience discussion, that's what we'd really like to hear. Okay, so go ahead.
I have the typical fibro fog where people are saying, you forget your words, things like that. But I also have had times where it's been very scary for me. I've forgotten where I was going. I've forgotten where I am. It's to the point where I try to always go out with someone because I will lose my way. I'll forget my surroundings. It's just kind of like my mind gives out on me, and it's scary. I'm young. I'm 33 years old, and it's just like I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm going. I've been in the car with my husband taking our dogs out on a walk, and we haven't gone far. We've gone maybe 20 minutes. And we're on the way back home, and I've forgotten what we were just doing. And it's scary to me. And on the times when I've been out by myself, and this has happened to me where I forget, where I am or where my car is or, what I'm doing, and I'm alone, then I start to have a panic attack because I'm alone and my mind has just given out on me. And it's extremely scary to think that your mind has just left you. And to be a young person and feel like, it's almost to feel like you have Alzheimer's and your mind is just leaving you. It's a very scary feeling.
Thank you, Valerie. I see a lot of head nods. Valerie, when you are experiencing that, do you have more often? Are you tired? Are you fatigued? Are you in more pain when that happens than typical?
Not always. The one time I was saying when I was alone, I had just come from a volunteer activity, so I was definitely tired. The other time where I was saying I had forgotten where I was or where we had just come from, I was in a great mood that day. My mind just gives out on me sometimes, and it doesn't always correlate with pain. Sometimes it's like I just forget, it's almost like I forget who I am, where I am. It's just, my brain just leaves me.
Okay, thank you. We only have a few minutes left, and I want to hear if there are any symptoms that in the room that you experience that you would put in your top 3 that you haven't yet heard discussed today. Okay, we have a couple back there. So how about in the black sweater first, and then here.
Hi, my name is Lori. One of the symptoms that I experience constantly is feeling cold. I'm cold, I'm freezing, it feels like I've been packed in ice. Last year I turned my air conditioner on twice in the summer. I had people coming over thinking I was nuts. So that's my top 3 is that freezing.
Okay. Any other symptoms? Okay, right here.
Paresthesia, mostly in front of the leg, upper leg, and twitching of the muscle, which is really annoying, mostly in the eyelid.
One more, and then I'm going to see if my colleagues want to ask it. Okay. Two more.
Jan Chambers speaking from our survey again. 39% of the people who responded have suicidal ideation because they can't find relief from their symptoms. That's a huge picture, 39%. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. We'll go to Laura.
Just through some discussion with other people here, a vitamin D deficiency is something that people seem to have in common, and I've also run into other people as well who have underactive thyroid.
Okay. So can I ask, I know we move quickly and not everyone gets a chance to say all they want, but can I ask if my FDA colleagues have any symptoms that they want to follow up on briefly? We covered a lot of material in a short amount of time. Okay, if not, we'll have one more comment, 2 more comments, because you also haven't had a chance to speak today. Okay. And then 3 more comments.
Hi, I'm Ray Gleason, and I'm the Medical Education and Research Director for the National Fibromyalgia and Chronic Pain Association. And I just wanted to bring up, because it hasn't been mentioned here, and I know through the surveys that we've done here and through the years that I've done at other fibromyalgia organizations, that stiffness is like the number 1. It has come in even number 1 above pain on some of those surveys. And these surveys are 5,000 people that are responding, so it's not a small group of people. And I just want, that I think is really important in what you're thinking about and how you're planning, what you're going to be doing here in the future. But spasticity is a definite problem.
Thank you very much. We'll go back there and then we'll go to Louis.
Hi, I am Araceli Telles and I come from Mexico.
And I have all those symptoms, but I have another one is my movement. I start walking, and then I start walking less and less and less, and I stop, and I can continue. And it happens also to me when I am driving. I cannot move my hands or my feet, and then I have to stop, and somebody have to come and pick me.
Thank you.
And also, I cannot open sometimes one eye. I open one, and the other one is closed.
Thank you very much. So we'll go to Louis, and then I'm going to go to the web and the phone. Yes, Louis, I promise. Your experience is different than others.
What I'd like to say that's different that hasn't been mentioned yet is I, in fibrofog, have what I call a brain, excuse me, eye-brain disconnect, where I can be looking right at something and don't see it. I can't find it. And it's so obvious. It's 3 feet in front of my face, and I can't find it.
Thank you very much.
She finds it for me. She's a very good helper.
Our support networks are so important, aren't they? Is this very quickly, Jacob?
Yeah, one thing I want to talk about that hasn't been really spoken about, what was listed, was the irregular bowel movement. That seems to be a symptom that a lot of people that I've found have dealt with, and I deal with that constantly, so that's one.
I see a lot of head nods, and I won't ask for a show of hands, but I'm seeing a lot of head nods in the room from that. On the web, do we have any more new symptoms that have been discussed? We just need anything new.
Yeah, there were just a couple of things. There seems to be a lot more of a focus on thoughts of suicide and actual knowing other patients that have committed suicide. There's a very varied conversation about motor control, both with the either feeling numbness or the fluttering, and then a wide range of different GI-related issues from nausea, IBS, constipation, etc.
Okay. The mobility, the erratic movements, or the things that were described over here or described on the web, is that, can you, with a show of hands, if you feel comfortable, do you experience that as a type of symptom? Okay, great. All right, I now want to go on the phone. We're a couple minutes from our break, and the phone allows us to give an opportunity for those of you on the webcast, a few of you, to contribute to the dialogue. So I'm going to ask the operator for a caller.
Yes, our first question is from Sharon Waldrop. Your line is open.
Hi, Sharon.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to mention that I had severe pain and fatigue in my legs to the point that when I married my husband at the age of 27, we put a chairlift in his home that was 2 stories. And after giving birth to my son, those problems went away, and nobody's been able to figure that out. So while that symptom has been mentioned by other people, I wanted to bring up the effects that the pregnancy had on that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I think. We don't get into the discussion, but how many of you, mainly ladies in the audience today, found that if you went through a pregnancy, that changed your symptoms in a significant way? Okay. We won't get into discussing that, but perhaps if you could elaborate on that in the docket comments. Do we have another caller, operator?
Yes, our next question is from Larry Knight. Your line is open.
Hello. I have a pain issue that wasn't really mentioned on here. I went to the University of Washington to get this diagnosis, and he told me I had small fibromyalgia. Mine only affects my low body. Specifically, the pain is intense in my legs. It feels like a combination of bee stings and the kind of pins and needles you get when part of your body falls asleep. I'm curious if anybody else has heard of that or has any of the same issues.
You want to repeat that? Sharon?
I'm sorry, I wasn't quite sure I heard, but did he say small fiber?
Can you repeat what you had?
He told me I had small fibromyalgia, and it affects only my lower body. It feels like a combination of bee stings and pins and needles in just my legs.
Has anyone experienced this? You have. Jacob has. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I've met a couple people online that have had some of the same issues, but theirs is their upper body.
Yes, Sabrina?
There was just a study released a couple months ago talking about small fiber involvement in fibromyalgia, but they were looking at the small fibers in the hand. And I don't know if Jan would have that citation or not.
When the neurologist gave me the diagnosis, he took skin plugs off of my legs to confirm that. He sent it off to a lab in New York, if I remember correctly, and there was a difference in the nerve density in the nerve fibers serving the legs. So I don't know if the study could correlate to the same thing, but only the lower body.
Okay. Thank you very much for bringing that up. I think we can take one more caller. Operator?
Our next question is from Mike Hermes. Your line is open.
Hi, Mike.
Hello. I guess the thing I was looking at was it seems over the years, I've had this about 9 years, and it seems to have progressed with symptoms similar to autonomic neuropathy or dysautonomia, those types of problems with things like POTS, postural, orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, drop in blood pressure, dizziness, weakness, getting sporadic at times, always weak and unstable, those types of things.
Okay. Mike, let me follow up with a question to the audience of how many of you here experience some sort of blood pressure symptoms, dizziness, or the things that Mike was describing. Mike, you've got a lot of hands raised, several hands raising in the room. Thank you very much. We actually have time for one more caller. Operator?
Yes. Our last question is from Clarissa Barone. Your line is open.
Yes, hi. My name is Clarissa Barone, and I'm 35 years old. And I thought it was important to point out, I've struggled with low libido since I was in my late teens. And I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in 2012, but I've had the symptoms also since I was in my late teens, especially the chronic fatigue and lower back pain. But I thought that low libido or even a lack of it, I have no interest in any physical contact. And sorry. I do love my husband, he's great, but, I just don't think it's natural. I'm 35, I'm not that old, but I've never had a big interest in it at all. My poor husband, bless him, but, I thought it's important to point out because in order to have a good quality of life as a young female, I just think it's not natural that I don't have that. So thank you for your time.
There are some heads nodding in the room, so thank you very much for sharing that. And with that, I think we're going to move into the break, and when we come back, we will have the second discussion on the treatment approaches and really delve into that a little bit more. Thank you all so much for a very, very productive Topic 1 discussion. Thanks.